want to thank you for joining me on this very difficult topic of suicide, and for your concern, as I also have a concern about this. It's a problem. Suicide is becoming very common, especially among young people, and so I had a friend of mine whose daughter was terminally ill, actually, and was in a great deal of pain, and she ended her own life, and her mom, who's my friend, came to me in great agony, and wanted to know, what did the Bible say? Because she had been brought up to believe that suicide is an unforgivable sin. So this session, I call it, What Does the Bible Say? And it's about suicide. And what I did, when she asked me this question, I couldn't answer right away, because my whole method of operation, I guess you'd call it, is always to go to Scripture to find answers in Scripture. And if I answer quickly, I'm doing it from tradition. So I ask for time to go to Scripture. Now, what I ended up doing was first looking historically at where the Christian church, how they arrived at the conclusion that suicide was an unforgivable sin. And so I really did a historical search first. And then I decided I wanted to take a look at the different interpretive positions and what they were, what the evidence was for each of the interpretive positions. And that's the second thing I did. Then, of course, I went to the Bible myself, and I did a very serious study. I have come up with some conclusions that I feel comfortable with. I'm going to share with you all that I did in my search, and then at the end of this session I'll share with you also my conclusion. But of course, you're going to have to come to your own conclusion. So I'm simply going to give you all the steps that I went through in order to reach my own conclusion. Now, this whole issue is centered on one verse in Scripture. It's in the Ten Commandments, and I've given the translations, different translations. The King James versions translates, "Thou shalt not kill." Both the New International Version and the New American Standard Bible translate, "You shall not murder." Now, the first thing we have to understand is that this is an English translation. It's not the original. At the end of this session, I'm going to get into the original with you. You don't have to know Hebrew. I'll do it with you. We're going to get into the original. Because you get the word kill, you get the word murder, and murder has a much stronger connotation in English, because it has a sense of, someone takes up a weapon and intentionally destroys the life of another person. That's murder. So we can't depend on the English translation. That's the point I want to make here. All right, the first thing I did was to take a look historically at this whole issue of suicide and how it was handled historically. Let's start in the ancient world. In the ancient world, suicide was not a terrible thing. And in Egypt, it was, if you faced an unendurable suffering, it was acceptable to die by suicide. In Greece and Rome, martyrdom was acceptable when faced with evil or religious persecution. What's kind of interesting is that the first person in the ancient world that we have a record of is Socrates in Greece. And Socrates is the first one who questioned the moral correctness of suicide. And he did it based on and he was a philosopher, and he did it based on his understanding that life was a gift from the gods, belonged to the gods, and that if a person committed suicide, then they were denying a gift from the gods. Now, I say plural gods because in Greece, of course, they believed in many gods. And what is ironic here and tragic is that because Socrates took this position, which was contrary to the thinking of Greece at the time, he was committed to die. He received a death penalty. And the way he died was to take his own life. And he drank the hemlock, and that caused his death. So he, in fact, had a penalty to commit death by suicide.